Hello, Celine. I am really looking forward to going through your images in this portfolio review. Okay, so your first shot is this wonderful image of the moon, and I'm really impressed with it. I don't know what kind of lens you used, but whatever you did, it looks great. We can see so much detail here. Your exposure is spot on. Now, I would suggest to sort of reduce the blacks a little bit more. So under light, I'm just going to go to the blacks and reduce them. And the reason being is I just feel it's going to be a little bit more dramatic to have this dark gray look. Now there was nothing wrong with what you had, of course. We don't want it too dark, by the way. I like this sort of dark gray look. So here's the original, and here is the change with a little bit of blacks reduced. I think this is a bit more punchier. Now, next up is cropping. Now, if you were to crop perfectly to the rule of thirds in traditional composition, what you would have is something a little bit awkward, where the crosshairs of the rule of thirds would sort of be in the middle of the moon. This is probably appropriate. However, it's debatable because the moon is so large in your picture that I think that, you know, your choice of crop is probably perfectly fine. Now, the other thing, of course, you could do is just make it a square. And this as well is debatable because some people would say, oh, that's just too normal. I want off-centered. Yeah, I totally agree. But let's just see what it's like with an aspect ratio of 1:1, which is square. Now, the problem with a square is in order to have proper balance, we're actually losing a lot of the picture. So let me try to balance this out here. Yeah, that's not really looking so good. It's just sort of like a ball that's floating in your face. So what we'll do is we'll get rid of that. And let's see your image the way that you had it. And yeah, I think it looks good. I may be tempted to have equivalent distance between here and here. So let's pull this in a little bit. Sorry, I'm going to unlock my crop tool. Okay, let's try that again. Now, equidistance is sort of a compositional technique where at least in this picture, where the distance between the frame and the moon, let's say that that's on my computer screen 1 inch. Let's say this is 1 inch. Okay, so we would also have 1 inch here. And this equidistance sort of gives a sense of balance. Now, of course, you're going to have to redo your name, which is probably quite easy. But I feel that this is probably the best off-centered look that you can get with this shot. Really good work. Now, one other thing you may want to consider is under color, and this, of course, I'm using Lightroom CC. You don't need to use Lightroom. You could use any software. Let's just add a little bit of blue just to see what happens. Now, the question is, do you like a bluish night or the yellowish? And you know, it could be entirely based on your mood. Now let's reduce the blacks even more. So it depends, you know, some people want the blue look, some people want a black and white. It's really up to you. However, for me, I think I would probably aim for something neutral like this, just a little bit of blue. Okay, great work. Okay, let's go to your next picture. Now, I really love the colors in this picture, and so much so I would increase the vibrance even more. So my vibrance went up to +30. This may be a little bit over the top for some people, but I like it. Also, see this area here? We don't need it. It's just distracting. So we're going to actually ditch it altogether. And by doing so, do you see what's happening to the bee? What's happening? If you can see the crosshairs in the rule of thirds grid, you just notice that the bee is now perfectly placed in the composition. In fact, we're going to make it even better. See down here? This is too distracting. I'm always looking for clean lines and clean spaces. Okay, let's pull this in a little bit, and the crosshair should be on the body of the insect, or the bird or animal, whatever it is. Now, what do you think? Let's go to the original. Now let's go to the cropped, and this is a cropping for power. It's a traditional compositional cropping, and I think it looks awesome. Really good work. Okay, let's go to your next shot. Now for this picture, I think you did a stunning job. I would like to see a little bit more vibrance in the blues, so I'm going to choose blue, and I'm going to increase the blue saturation. Okay. Now the next thing is, whenever we have a situation where an animal or a person or a vehicle is going in a certain direction, either left to right or right to left, we usually, not always, but we usually want to have more space in front of the animal than behind. Now that's true that you do have that, sort of. The animal's face is sort of dead center in the middle of the frame. So that's why I would suggest that you crop so that the animal is actually swimming into the picture space, and that allows us to sort of flow with the animal through the water. And I think that will make us sort of a more harmonious feel to it. Okay, now at this point we have the crosshairs of the rule of thirds on the animal's body, which is good. Now you can also decide, do I want this to be a square crop? It's almost a square crop anyway. So let's go to our aspect ratio, and let's go 1:1. Again, if you don't use Lightroom CC, don't worry. All editing software has a 1:1 crop. Now this may be a little bit too constricting, but if you are, posting this to Instagram or you're printing it out on a wall, I feel that this is probably the best composition here. Let's see what it would be like if we just did custom. Actually, we'll go to as shot. We'll bring this in again. Unlock. I'm just going to debate myself on this little area here. The reflection of the beak is just sort of bothering me. It's a little bit of a distraction. I know it's nitpicking. However, I'm going to bring the top down a little bit so that the intersecting lines are on the body of the bird. Okay, let's accept that crop. Okay, so what do you think of this? I think that this is probably, in my mind, the most harmonious crop. There's a couple different options, of course. And of course, you're going to want to change your watermark, your name. But I feel this looks good. Anyway, it was a really lovely shot. So let's go to your next one. Now, it's always tricky to photograph people when you're under the shade of a tree, because you're getting these, on the faces, you want all light, all sunlight, or no sunlight. Those are the two options when you're doing portraits. And in this situation, there's so many shadows that are cast because of the tree branches, and this is really hard to deal with. That's why I suggest that people will be photographed in complete shadow or complete late or early morning light when it's soft. However, let's see what we can do to make this picture better. First of all, we need to straighten it. It was a little crooked, so I'm going to rotate slightly, and I know that because of the way that the trees were. Next thing, I'm going to go to light, and I'm going to adjust shadows. I'm going to bring the shadows up. That means that the shadow areas are getting brighter and brighter, and this allows for a little bit of fill light in those shadow areas. Okay, and I really feel that that's the best I can do. Again, you did a good job. It's just the lighting situation needs to be a bit better. When I say you did a good job, I mean emotionally. There's so much emotional content here. It's great. You know, the energy between the two people having fun. I really like it. Okay, so let's check out. Okay, good. We have one more for you. This is a really lovely shot. Great work. I think we can improve it. We're just going to do a rotation by probably 1 degree clockwise. Now the reason I say that is take a look at the horizontal horizon. It's not perfectly horizontal. It needs to be adjusted. So we're going to go to crop tool and straighten. Now I'm going to just straighten a very tiny amount. In Photoshop, it's for you it would be plus 0.4, but of course that's in different software. They have different ways of measuring straightening. Okay, so I'm going to accept that. Now the next thing I'm going to do is make this into a panoramic. And I'll tell you why in a second. First of all, I'm going to drop the crop down. And it may be hard to see my lines here for the rule of thirds grid, but I'm going to place the top horizontal line at the horizon, the actual horizon. So I'm going to double tap. And what this allows is 2/3 of the picture space is the water and 1/3 is the sky. And this is traditionally a good way to compose. Now the next thing we have is 2 strong horizontal elements. These are the trees. So we're going to balance these out by moving the crop from left to right. Now the trick is that we want to have the trees acting as what we call framing devices. And the framing devices, the trees, should be equidistant to each other. I mean, equidistant to the edge of the frame. So this space here should be equidistant from this space, sort of like this tree to the edge of the frame, should be equidistant from this tree to the edge of this frame. So let me pull it in a little bit more. And what that allows us to have is a very balanced picture. And these 2 trees are framing the islands out here in the water. Now let me show you the original. It's good. Now let me show you this shot. This is more of a powerful composition. It takes your beautiful shot and makes it even stronger. Okay, so that is the end of your photo review, Celine. I enjoyed going through it immensely. Thank you so much for submitting the photos. Talk soon.